Life does not ask what we want. It presents us with options. The most basic question is not what is best, but who shall decide what is best. It is usually futile to try to talk facts and analysis to people who are enjoying a sense of moral superiority in their ignorance. It doesn't matter how smart you are unless you stop and think. It takes considerable knowledge just to realize the extent of your own ignorance. Intellect is not wisdom. Some of the biggest cases of mistaken identity are among intellectuals who have trouble remembering that they are not God. We seem to be getting closer and closer to a situation where nobody is responsible for what they did, but we are all responsible for what somebody else did. If facts, logic, and scientific procedures are all just arbitrarily socially constructed notions, then all that is left is consensus, more specifically peer consensus. The kind of consensus that matters to adolescents or to many among the intelligentsia. It's amazing how much panic one honest man can spread among a multitude of hypocrites. Since this is an era when many people are concerned about fairness and social justice, what is your fair share of what someone else has worked for? I have never understood why it is greed to want to keep the money you have earned, but not greed to want to take somebody else's money. People who pride themselves on their complexity and deride others for being simplistic should realize that the truth is often not very complicated. What gets complex is evading the truth. One of the consequences of such notions as entitlements is that people who have contributed nothing to society feel that society owes them something. Apparently just for being nice enough to grace us with their presence. It is amazing that people who think we cannot afford to pay for doctors, hospitals, and medication somehow think that we can afford to pay for doctors, hospitals, medication, and a government bureaucracy to administer it. Unfortunately, the real minimum wage is always zero, regardless of the laws. And that is the wage that many workers receive in the wake of the creation or escalation of a government-mandated minimum wage. Because they lose their jobs or fail to find jobs when they enter the labor force. Making it illegal to pay less than a given amount does not make a worker's productivity worth that amount, and, if it is not, that worker is unlikely to be employed. The fact that so many successful politicians are such shameless liars is not only a reflection on them, it is also a reflection on us. When the people want the impossible, only liars can satisfy. Freedom has cost too much blood and agony to be relinquished at the cheap price of rhetoric. Competition does a much more effective job than government at protecting consumers. Rhetoric is no substitute for reality. One of the sad signs of our times is that we have demonized those who produce, subsidized those who refuse to produce, and canonized those who complain. What is history but the story of how politicians have squandered the blood and treasure of the human race? I think we're raising whole generations who regard facts as more or less optional. We have kids in elementary school who are being urged to take stands on political issues, to write letters to congressmen and presidents about nuclear energy. They're not a decade old, and they're being thrown these kinds of questions that can absorb the lifetime of a very brilliant and learned man. And they're being taught that it's important to have views, and they're not being taught that it's important to know what you're talking about. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel.